Enough to knock me out, but I'm still holding the throne. You'll never know till it's over. So pretty it hurts. Just beware of the thorns.
Here we go. So
All right.
you met her about at some place, and she shot you down.
Yeah, me and my buddies rented a shotgun house. You know, one shot could have killed all of us in there with the shotgun, but she used to jog by there because some guys would chase her when she was jogging, and they wouldn't go down that street. And I asked her out, and she said, "Well, I'm seeing somebody," you know. And I forgot about her. I was moving on. A couple months later, I was in a bar, and some guy, there was a commotion. I looked back, and some guy's choking this gal. And like I said, normally I'd stay out of that. I was just so damn mean back then. But I must have been in a bad mood. I choked him, and I kept hearing somebody saying, "Please stop." And I had tunnel vision on him. I just choked him until he went unconscious. And I turned around, and it was her standing there. And we just kind of been together ever since, you know. We went by her mother's house, and her mom and dad weren't home. I said, "You got a dog?" And she goes, "Yeah, I got a dog." And I said, "Does he bite?" And she said, "He ain't got no teeth." I said, "Well, hell with that dog that, you know, he had no teeth." There's a little beagle named Matthew. He was cool as hell.
But the part I like is
yeah, that's how we met. She shot me down, and
that was a wonderful story. I like that story. I like the part where you was telling the guy that you was choking out. How do you like it?
yeah, I kept saying that over and over, and his face is turning colors, and I could tell he was getting ready to go out. And I said, "Well, he's just gonna go out then, you know." And I don't know what was going on that day that I got involved in it, but looking back on it, it scares me to death. You know how easy we could have just skipped off each other if she wouldn't have been in there.
I had a similar thing happen in prison. I was choking this guy out, and I know what you're talking about. You just go blank, you know?
Yeah, it's something clicked, you know, and I'm glad it did, though, because it was a situation where normally I wouldn't have gotten involved. And like I said, we could have just skipped right off of each other. I think about that all the time.
But you had a different life than I did. I had a kind of a quiet life, and you had kind of a wild, violent life, didn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was talking to a guy this morning. It was about a week ago. Me and Amy was up playing Minecraft, and I got a call. It was like 12:30 from one of my friends, and first thing I said is, "You all right? What's going on?" Because we don't call each other. And his son wanted to meet me, and his son said, "Dad, who's this guy in all these pictures? You know, I've never met him." And he said, "That's Mark Volkerding." He said, "He's the most violent man I've ever met in my life." He said, "This skinny guy," because he's looking at pictures of me when I was on heroin. I got down to 142. And Dwayne said, "That skinny guy will stab you to death." I mean, he called me when we first got back, and he said, "What happened to you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Everybody's saying how nice you are. And wait till you see Mark. He's changed, you know." And he said, "You're the most violent man I've ever met. You know, what happened?" And at the time, I didn't have an answer. But the last 5 years with my health, reflecting on everything, I tell everybody, God softened my heart in prison. And he's then he said, "Amy, you know, teach me to love again."
Right, exactly. You know, that you got to have a woman, you know, that help you change, you know. But you
yeah.
What I found really amazing is that when you said you was in Menard in Illinois, is that kid. If you want to talk about that, go ahead, because I think that's just amazing.
Well, that kid wasn't at Menard. I was at Menard down the pit, and then they moved me up on the hill.
Oh, all right.
They've torn that down, and they transferred me. They transferred me after about a year and a half down to Shawnee Correctional Center in Vienna, Illinois. And that's where that happened with that kid at Menard. You know, and I still stayed pretty ruthless, you know, but that's the first time I can remember feeling compassion for somebody outside the brothers I ran with or my family or children. That was the only thing that was really safe with me was children. But there's a kid there. His upper arms, these biceps, were about the size of my wrist. Just had one of those guys you see and you're like, he's got no business here. And I read his motion of discovery, his messed up case. He got kicked out of the house, and it was wintertime. It was cold, and he knew his uncle was out of town. And he broke up in his uncle's house to get out of the weather. His uncle come home, and they pressed burglary charges on him. This kid didn't have any priors, nothing, and they gave him time.
He was just trying to get warm.
Yeah. And that's what he told me he was just trying to do. And you look at this kid, like I said, he's one of those you just knew had no business being there. He should have had a tattoo on his head that said victim. It's just like a neon sign. Any predators would be attracted to him like chum in the water, And there was another organization there that kept taking him up in rooms, different cells. And I knew what was going on, but he was a neutron. And I was a flag holder by then for the Northsiders, and I couldn't do nothing. If I would get in a war with another organization over a neutron, my own brothers be coming for me,
Right.
But God made a way. He made a way with
And that was
what had happened is one of the guys. Go ahead, Harvey. I'm sorry.
I said, but that's where you started having the first person you had compassion for, really, right?
It broke my heart seeing what was going on. I felt compassion for him, empathy for him, and to see his face when he'd come out of those cells, because there you could pop your door during the day. They locked you down all night, and in Illinois back then, if you were in a gang, you couldn't get on a phone in the yard unless you were in a gang. You had to pay for that privilege. The gangs controlled phones. But whenever I hooked up, first thing they told me is whenever you get to your cell, you tell them that's a North Side house from now on. Well, if you're in a mob, you're not supposed to go disrespecting another organization's house. And that kid was in talking with one of my brothers one day that was a North Side. Well, he's an associate. And he wouldn't come out. And the guy went in to grab him. And my brother armbarred him, slammed up against the wall and said, hey, this is a North Side house, man. You ain't gonna come in here disrespecting my house. There was 12 of them on that unit. And I had 2 other North Side brothers with me. And there was a guy that claimed the AB. I don't know if he checked out on the West Coast, but he was a little short dude. They called him Evil. And they called me up, his shot caller on that unit called me up. And he said, hey, man, you need to violate your brother. I said, he said, either you violate him or we're going to roll on you guys. And so he left me no choice. I can't violate my brother when he's in the right.
Right.
So I went down and I wasn't looking forward to fighting, 4-on-1 odds. I went down, I told my 2 brothers to get your shoes on, man, get out here. And I went to Evil self. I said, I know you're not obligated. This is what's going on. And he stepped out too. So they were up top, we were down bottom. And I said, come on, let's do this. And he called me back up and said, Mark, come on back up here. I went back up and he said, I was watching to that landing so I could jump over that rail if I had to and get down quick. Right. But he said, let's squash this. Let's squash it. I was relieved. I told him, I said, your brother needs to be violated. He's the one that showed the disrespect to my brother's house. So they said, we'll violate him. I should have let it go at that. I was relieved, but I was aggravated now at the same time. You've done screwed up my day, Right. So I told him, I said, I want that kid so he can pay me protection. And I didn't think they'd give him up, but they did. Wow. I never charged them nothing, right. But I looked out for him after that, and we had an associate that was pissing on a toilet, making that kid lick piss off a toilet. And he got violated for doing it because I went to the guy that had the camp and told him, I said, hey, you talk about all this shit, white boys looking out for white boys. This kid's getting turned out, and we got an associate making him lick piss off a toilet.
Right.
And that dude ended up at Christmas time, took all that kid's stuff. And I went to the guy calling shots for the camp again. He said, what do you want to do? Violate him again? I said, no, I want to lock up with him. I'm tired of it, And he said, we ain't got many brothers, don't mess them up too bad. So I went to his cell and I said, hey man, I knocked on the door. He said, who is us? It's Mark. He popped the door and he smiled at me, man, and said, what, I got a violation coming? And I said, oh no, we're locking up. I seen what you could do with that boy. I had one brother hold security, and I played hell's bells with his head off that toilet,
Right.
And he didn't swing once. We ended up running him up into protective custody because I told Joe, I said, you said we need brothers. He didn't even try swinging. He just tucked up. And that's what I knew he was going to do when I went to the cell. Them weak guys that prey on them little weak dudes, I hate
That's the way it
people
always is. Yeah.
I can't stand people
Yeah.
like that. I hate them.
Because-
They're cowards.
Yeah. Just because they're weak, they want to find somebody weaker,
Yeah. Well, the kids cell, I used to call them big no neck dudes. He was huge, but he was a neutron. He couldn't do nothing about it. He's the guy they sent in my door first for the going away party. He's a big dude, and they weren't going to give me a going away party because if something needs to be done, I did it myself. I didn't send people on missions, and I wanted my brothers to go home, and they didn't want to give me a going away party, and I wanted the full flavor. So I went in the yard and said, hey, what, you bitch, call him a bitch and shit. I went home, the whole side of my body bruised. There's a knock on the door, and I popped the door. Mike walked in, he said, I'm sorry, Mark. And I hit him as hard as I can. He just power slammed me. And they beat me so hard I couldn't even catch a breath, but I got my going away party.
That's kind of like
it's just kind of a don't come back, they beat you good and say don't come back, bro.
We used to do the similar things like people going home or on birthdays, just beat them down, like we talked about Terry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all
good,
all in good fun, it's not, yeah. And there's that camaraderie that's built there, but the problem with an organization is a lot of times it's going to be your own people going to end up sticking that knife in your blood pumper,
Careful about
that's why, I had to go 12 on 4 because I had no choice. I knew what the repercussions was going to be. And I was mainly security and enforcement. And, you're walking in a security line, somebody cuts through that line, you're under order to stab them to death. I mean, you don't let them get near that line. So I'm in doing 4 years, got to do 4 years, and I could get another 15, 20 real quick.
Yeah, you never know,
But yeah. But no, that's the first time looking back on it all, meditating on it, that I felt compassion for somebody. And whenever I left the camp to the guy, because Joe left me to camp. So I had all of Shawnee, and I left that to another guy. And that's why I'm also red flagged in all them police cruisers, is because of the gang affiliation. They got a federal database for all that stuff. And once you're in that, you are always under the microscope, and your name's pretty much ruined for life with the law authorities.
Terry is telling me that he couldn't even get transferred to another prison without them taking him up to the gang task force and taking his he said, I don't even have to say anything. They just said, come with us, and then strip him down naked. And
yeah. Well, I joined the organization I was in because I had another organization approach me about that tattoo on my hand there. And it was from me and Nate and all of us. And, they're telling me I got to cover it up. I said, that's like changing my last name, man.
Right.
And they said, whatever, white boy, you got weak. And then my buddy Johnny, parole's looking for him right now. I don't know what he did, but he come to me. he sent Ice Pick to hook me up. He said, "You got to get that dude. I know him." And I thought, well, I ain't gonna bullshit. I thought, well, this could be keep me alive, because when you got an organization that's got a bunch of guys' life without the possibility, they ain't got no problem taking you out.
Oh,
And it was all gang ruled by then. The gangs controlled everything in that prison. A lot of dirty guards, but that organization started out as a very good thing by a man named Joe Ganji. I never got to meet Joe. I got some brothers that have, and he was a good leader. It was the white man was really getting exploited, raped, victimized. And, Joe would see a guy that had a little heart, and he got all the North Side Chicago gangs together, to unite. And he formed North Siders. But, if I went back, I would do what I had to do, because I do owe them something. I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for Joe Ganji. Every white man that's gone to prison in Illinois, they owe him something. They really do. He made it where survivability was not. It increased survivability big
right.
time. But now the guards got everything locked down. The guards control it. So but they better hope the guards don't ever lose control, because the organization I was in, bad leader, really decimated it. He shamed it, brought a lot of shame to it, and a lot of people flip-flopped. But it was a great organization at one time, and it was started for a solid reason. Things just morph, and you get bad people in there that corrupt it.
Yeah, that's pretty
But
much
I
what
do owe
happened.
them something.
That's pretty much what happened to Family Values too here in Missouri. Started out,
I've heard of them. I don't know much about them, but I've heard of them.
yeah, they started out
I've
helping
heard of
young
them.
people coming to prison. Uh, that's what it was all about. And
Right.
now it's completely different.
It always turns into money and power, always.
Right.
But yeah, and there was a lot of bloodshed shed to create that organization. I caught the tail end of it. But to be honest, I stood on the shoulders of some warriors. I mean, some really tough guys, like these younger guys nowadays. It's a different. My dad said something to me one time. It's one of the things he said that's very true. Every generation gets softer, more self-entitled, and just weaker. More like the world owes them something.
Right. Well, I've always
And
thought that,
yeah.
like my grandfather, he was tougher than my father. My father's tougher than me. It's just like each, like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
World War II, they had the Depression they went through, the Great Depression, the Great War, and I mean, they were hard like nails.
Right.
They don't call them Great Generation for nothing. There's a reason for that. And it's the same thing with those old school convicts. I mean, it
Oh yeah, no doubt.
was extreme brutality. Gladiator school.
And there was an order to the chaos. Now there's no order. Just
Well, there wasn't a need for gangs at first, but then, as the population grew and the prison profiteering, and you got so many people, at one time you really needed the gangs when I was in prison, I can't imagine if there wasn't gangs, it'd be anarchy. So it really brought some kind of order to things. But prison gang is different than a street gang. The brutality goes up a huge notch.
I agree 100%.
We've had here in St. Louis, we've had like 3 people shot on the highway in the last week. Last week, 3 people shot on the highway. It's just out of control.
Hey, Mindy, did you say St. Louis was #1 now? St. Louis is #1 in crime in the United States.
It is almost every year for the amount of people. They go by every 100,000 people. It's #1 almost every year in murders.
Every year, yeah. I just found that out this year because I used to think it was Chicago, or
No,
one of them other cities.
no. See, the Chicago guys too, we beef in Illinois. Southern Illinois and Northern Illinois do not get along good. Chicago, East St. Louis has an organization called the Metros, And they were formed because the Chicago gangs were preying on East St. Louis guys.
Right.
So they formed the Metros. But St. Louis, for the amount of people,
I remember
was
when
more murders than anywhere in the country.
I remember when I was in prison in the 90s, there for a while, there was like a conflict between people from St. Louis and Kansas City, you know, and sometimes even if they was in the same organization, you know.
Yeah.
Hey,
I never
like I said,
noticed that too much. I never noticed that. I never had nothing against Kansas City. And I know a lot of Chicago gangbangers. That guy that got me that lawyer whenever I caught my robbery charge, he was a Simon City Royal out of Chicago.
right,
But you know, Chicago's got that kind of like Compton image where they think they're the baddest in the land. And you know, being bad to me, I learned a long time ago it's a waste of time
right.
because there's somebody right around the corner gonna put me on my ass, or
I learned that
you know, or say you're the baddest. You're a Bruce Lee. You're gonna get old, and some young buck gonna take you down like Jack Johnson, and eventually somebody will get George Foreman. But
that's
you know, somebody's always better. It's a colossal waste.
there's always somebody that's better than you know.
Oh, yeah. I got in a fight with a guy I went to high school with. This is a true story. I chased him down, used to mess with him all the time, and I seen him years later at a party, and I was drunk, went up, started shit with him. Every punch I threw, it felt like my wrist was going to
Wow.
break, and I went in a different direction. And that went on like 10 minutes. And I was a seasoned street fighter then. I'd been to prison, and he kept saying, "You done? You done?" And finally I said, "I'm done." And he gave me a beer. I said, "What the hell happened to you, dude?" He goes, "Oh, he got out, went in the military, became a Navy SEAL." I didn't feel so bad then,
Right.
you know, but he made a believer out of me.
Right.
And it was very humbling, but I needed to be humbled.
Right.
Know? So
sometimes
he could have killed me.
Sometimes we need to be taken down a notch or two, don't we? But
what's that?
I said sometimes we need to be taken down a notch or two, but you know, it's always
I needed to be taken down consistently a notch or two. I was arrogant as hell. I remember strutting around like I was something.
Yeah.
My buddy Terry told me he was a flag holder when I was at Menard. He plays poker with us every month. And he said, "Yeah, man." He says, "Before you got your flag, you was an associate out in the yard. I come up to you and start talking to you." He says, "I started saying, 'Fuck you, motherfucker. Get the fuck,' you know, just cussing at me." And that could have got me, you know, really messed up.
Right.
But I was just so damn cocky that, you know, like I always say, if it wasn't for God Almighty, I wouldn't even be here. He is just really twisted me down different ways. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't me. There was guys in there that made me look like a nice guy, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, that it was just God. It's all God. But that's where I think my heart was softened, because after that, I started getting, you know, more where I still stayed pretty hard till I got out of prison. And by the time I got out, it's like the anger was going away and I was just getting tired. You know, I'd raged for so long.
But you know, when you're in prison, it's different, you know. You can show compassion and stuff, like you said, had compassion for that kid, but you still got to be on your toes, you know.
Oh yeah. I'm still like here at night. I'm like, we got to close these assassin blinds.
Right.
I don't like being able to not see what's out there they can see in. I'm always on defense. If I go to a restaurant somewhere, I want to sit with my back to the wall.
Right. Me too.
Where I can see the door.
Yeah.
My problem is I was so arrogant and cocky that I didn't pay attention to names and faces, you know. And I could have somebody come up to me that wants to kill me and I wouldn't even know it. You know, it just, like I say, either you like me or you love me or you hate me. There's no middle ground.
I was kind of cocky and arrogant, but
yeah,
I don't think that much, you know. I mean, I knew if I was going to get into it with somebody, if I was going to have trouble with him or not. You know, if you know, I might have to pick up something and hit him because he looks like he might whoop me, you know.
Well, it's a survival skill in prison to be able to size a man up quickly.
Right.
To me, the eyes tell a lot. You've
Right.
got those guys that, I don't know, I can almost tell by looking at a man's eyes if he's taking a life or not, if he's what he's done. I
Right.
look at my eyes on a picture I got of when I had just gotten out of prison, and I look at my eyes now, and it's just night and day. You
Completely
could see
different.
you could see evil in my eyes. I mean, my best friend Nate, that's what you say. He already told me, he said, you were so evil. I didn't know I'd keep being your friend. And I mean, to a Christian or a Catholic, you know, somebody that believes in angels, demons, evil is demonic. And the things I've been told since I've been back that I forgot is some pretty evil stuff. You know, it's
Well, the 30
and to
minutes,
forget those things, I don't know.
the 30 minutes is about up. We're gonna have to close this, Mark.
All right, man.
It's good talking to you again. But I
You
thought
too, man. I'm gonna get down and see you here this spring or something.
I
Get down there.
but I thought people should hear about how you and Amy met and about that kid in prison, because I think those are two awesome stories, you know.
Yeah, she shot me down. She
Yeah.
shot me down, Harvey. She's over there. But
All
yeah,
right.
she's my whole world. I love her.
I'm gonna close this, bud. You have a good one.
All right, peace out, my brother.
You too.